Our guest speaker up tonight for a conversation. I just want to speak just very briefly about the value of trees in Judaism. And I'll say to the Kent students, although we do have a guest speaker tonight, I don't think services are going to run any longer than they normally do. So you should be able to stay for this, I would hope. So the value of trees in Judaism. Let's not forget that when God created the world, in the story of creation, trees are planted before human beings. And when the Torah teaches us to follow Adonai our God, the rabbis explain that this means that we should follow God's example. And if, when God created the world, God's first action in this earth here was to plant a garden of trees in Eden, so too must we plant and protect trees if we are to follow God's example. And in that Garden of Eden, we have both the tree of knowledge and we also have the tree of life, the Eitz Chaim. And that is an expression that we use actually to describe our Torah. When we talk about our Torah, we speak of our Torah as a tree of life. The Midrash, Kohelet Rabbah, teaches that when God created the first human beings, God led them around all the trees of the Garden of Eden and said, "Look at my works. See how beautiful they are. How excellent. For your sake I created them all. See to it that you do not spoil and destroy my world. For if you do, there will be no one else to repair it." We also have in Jewish Midrash the story of Honi, a man who was walking along the road when he saw an elderly man planting a carob tree. And Honi asked the man how long the elderly man thought it might take for that carob tree to actually produce fruit. And the man answered that it usually takes about 70 years for a carob tree to produce fruit. So Honi asks, "Are you sure that you're going to be here 70 years from now to reap the harvest from that plant, from that tree that you have just planted?" And the man replied, "I found this world filled with carob trees. Just as my ancestors planted for me, so will I plant for the future generations." And we have in Judaism also the Jewish value of Bal Tashchit. In Deuteronomy chapter 20, verse 19, it teaches that when you besiege a city during a time of war, and you capture that city, you shall not destroy its trees. You may eat from them, but you shall not cut them down. And the Torah goes on to ask, is the tree of the field a man, a person, to go into siege before you? And it reminds us how defenseless the trees are. And that teaching got sort of expanded, not only to include trees, not just during a time of war, but also to include an overall prohibition against needless destruction of anything natural, anything of any kind. In the medieval period, Bachya Ibn Bakuda taught that the life of a person and his food comes from the tree of the field, which I think he extended to include all kinds of plants. And it is not the way of a wise and understanding nation to needlessly destroy something so worthy. And therefore, you should not cut down a tree of the field. Rather, you should protect it from destruction and damage so that you may take benefit from it. And in the Jewish book of teaching, Sefer HaHinuch, we learn that the purpose of this commandment from Deuteronomy is to teach us to love that which is good and worthwhile and to cling to it, so that good becomes a part of us and we will avoid all that is evil and destructive in this world. This is the way of the righteous and those who improve society, who love peace and rejoice in the good in people and bring them close to our teachings, so that nothing, not even a grain of mustard, should be lost to the world, that they should regret any loss or destruction that they see, and if possible, they will prevent any destruction that they can. And in the Mishnah, trees are so important that we established a separate New Year's Eve just for trees. We call that the holiday of Tu B'Shvat, and we have a wonderful Tu B'Shvat Seder where we celebrate nature and the environment, and we consider the things that we can do to help nurture and restore and preserve this wonderful world that we live in. Well, we couldn't wait until Tu B'Shvat to talk about the danger that some of the trees are facing on Candlewood Mountain. We can see Candlewood Mountain often when we're driving up Route 7, but if you ever have the opportunity to drive up and down Candlewood Mountain Road, it is absolutely beautiful. I live sort of at the foot of the mountain. I go running across the mountain. I climb up the mountain. When you cross the top of the hill, the leaves turn just a little bit earlier than they do in other parts throughout the town. It is spectacular. Already, you can see the leaves turning red. You see just a few leaves beginning to fall. And it is one of the most meaningful experiences of my life is when I go running through the area and I pass the Candlelight Farms and I get to see these beautiful trees that we have there. And some of the trees at Candlewood Mountain are in danger right now of being deforested. And I'd like to invite Lisa Ostrove to please come up and have a conversation with us about the danger that is threatening some of the trees on Candlewood Mountain. Thank you so much. You know, I can pull this out with a little more leverage. There you go. Look at that, huh? You're not the only person who uses that.
Oh my God, that's very funny.
So, Lisa, first of all, I want to thank you so much for coming and speaking with us tonight. It's not always easy to speak in front of a whole group of people, and it takes courage. And it's when you really care about something that you say, even if I'm uncomfortable with this, I'm going to get out there, put myself out there because it's important. Well, you and I both live on Candlewood Mountain.
Yes.
What can you tell us about the mountain and why you enjoy living there?
We bought in 2002 with 2 children. And we bought it because it was just serene and beautiful. Oh, thanks. I can actually project on that. We bought it because it was just beautiful. We had 2 kids, and I'd sit at my office desk on Wednesday, and my stomach would turn. What am I going to do with the kids this weekend? You know, you have to prepare when you have children. And so we went looking for a house. And when we saw the house that we have on Candlewood Mountain Road, we just fell in love, and we said, okay, this is it. And our children grew up there on weekends in their free time. We live in the city as well. And we just loved it. It's been a beautiful life up there. Serene, quiet, nature, which you don't get in the city. Friends, which have multiplied recently. And we love it. Do you love it?
I do,
right?
I do.
And you hike down to the lake, and it's wonderful.
And my kids love it as well.
Oh, nice.
So in Judaism, we have a value called tikkun olam. We're healing the world. And often we speak this value in terms of the work that we do to protect and to preserve the environment. Would you consider solar power something that could help us fulfill the Jewish value of tikkun olam?
Yes. So we founded a group called Rescue Candlewood Mountain because we believe in renewable energy. You have children, I have children. We want you guys to inherit the earth as we know it and not, have to deal with the storms and global warming. But in this instance, unfortunately, the siting of this project will do irreparable damage to the environment. There is no reason for it to be sited on Candlewood Mountain when you have brown fields and empty spaces to put this on. So you have century grass. I think we can all pick one eyesore in New Milford, someplace that we, think could be a great spot for solar, but because a real estate company found a cheap piece of land on Candlewood Mountain, they're looking to exploit it. They're going to pay $2 million. They're going to rent it out and make $9 million over 20 years, $450,000 a year, less what the cost is. And all of a sudden, business has tried to take priority over the citizens of New Milford. The citizens will have to make up, the town of New Milford voted in a pilot agreement for them earlier this year, allowing them a tax abatement where they only paid $2.7 million over 20 years instead of $6.2 million over 20 years, and the shortfall the citizens and residents of New Milford will have to bear the brunt of. It's not a good situation. The utility, the electricity generated from the solar panels, there's 75,000 solar panels They're gonna take off in phase one, 72 acres of trees. I think that you guys might have environmental studies and learned about the carbon intake and maybe of core forest. So that's what's up there is core forest. There is a definition on our website at rescuecandlewoodmountain.org. Core forest carbon intake rivals that of the trees and forests of the Amazon. There are studies in the Northeast from Yale Forestry that speak to how deforestation to put in solar panels does not help the environment, it hurts it, how we should deforest as little as possible. So Connecticut State Legislature has, as of July 1st, enacted a new law that said you can't just deforest core forest, you need to protect farmland and core forest. And in order to put a solar power plant on and destroy core forest, you need a letter from the DEP now. But this solar project filed June 28 and the law went into effect on July 1. So this project is asking for no environmental review because they're afraid of an environmental review because all of Candlewood Mountain is in the Natural Diversity Database. It is a very special place for wildlife, for carbon intake, for hiking, and you guys should at least have that in your future, that if you want to come back and bring your kids, you'll have something to hike through instead of a bold forest. So there's no jobs in it after it's initially put in. You will have to make up the shortfall in taxes, which is a burden if you don't have income, or even if you have a small income, it's an extra burden. And you will have no noticeable signs of reduction on your electric utility bills because the electricity generated by this is already spoken for to go to Massachusetts and for utility companies in Massachusetts. So there is no reason for our town to sell our mountain. And there is no reason why the citizens of New Milford have to bear the cost of it and the brunt of it. And that's why we started our organization. And so we have Facebook, Rescue Candlewood Mountain. You can read about it. You can see the PowerPoint presentation if you want to learn a little bit more about the situation. And you can see it on the web, rescuecandlewoodmountain.org. And you can sign our petition, and if they ask you for money, it's not us, and don't give them. It's petitions asking for money, which we don't understand why, but we were made aware of that. We have raised no money. Everything that is being done, the lawyers, the witnesses, the signs, the websites, everything we paid for out of our own pockets. We don't want money, we want people. And we would welcome any of you guys to come on September 26th, the siting council, who is now the decider of this project, because once the pilot was voted in, it went to Hartford. They're coming here for an evidentiary hearing in New Milford at Town Hall on September 26th. We're going to have a crowd on the New Milford Green at 2:15 with signs saying "Say No." We didn't have time or money to make t-shirts, sorry guys. And at 6:30, if you want, you can sign up for the public hearing portion of the hearing, and you can sign up to speak your mind and have some say in this. You can email the siting council, siting.council@ct.gov, and you can send a letter to the town council in New Milford saying, what the heck? What are you doing to us? Because nobody knows. And we've been out there talking about it for a month or two. That's Melissa Pizzola and Carl Dunham. And we're trying our best to make sure that everyone in New Milford knows the situation and knows what's being done to them. So thank you. And thank you. You have more questions?
I do.
Okay, sorry.
Not even these questions, don't worry about this.
Okay, good.
But you know, I see all kinds of wildlife on the mountain. Can you talk about any of the wildlife you
Yes.
might see from your house that could possibly be affected?
So we have had discussions with experts. The Audubon Society is going to speak at the hearing because there are endangered species up there. There are threatened species up there, and the Audubon Society is up in arms. There is a bird called the golden-winged warbler that they have fought and paid huge amounts of money to protect its habitat. Diminishing habitat is a problem for birds. It's a problem for everybody, because once you diminish the habitat, they become, I guess, prey. It's easier for someone to be a predator to the wildlife up there. You have coyotes and mountain lions and sun bears, I see. Foxes, raccoons, deer. But the most endangered species up there are the birds. What's so funny? Are the birds and the salamanders. Has anybody studied herpetology? So there have been many people in the last week that have been up on the mountain from the DEEP bagging eggs and salamanders and habitat and taking scoops and taking it back to a lab because there are certain endangered species and things that need to be protected up there.
I've also seen, you know, one of the best kept secrets in New Milford is this amazing hike that you can take from the foot of, well, really right where Candlewood Mountain Road begins. You can there's an inlet, and you can just go right up there, straight up the mountain. I've seen wild orchids there. I didn't even know that we had wild orchids here in New Milford. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, you mentioned that, and that hike is straight up. But imagine that the topography of the entire mountain is ledge. So they're going to pull out 72 acres of trees and stumps, and it's just soil over ledge. So one good rainstorm, it's 730 feet from Candlewood Lake. One good rainstorm, and it all goes downhill, and the lake gets invaded.
Yeah, you know, we often talk about the pollution that we put into the Housatonic and into the lake, and one of the greatest causes of pollution is the runoff. That when we replace trees and soil that would absorb all of the rain, and it ends up getting flushed through concrete, then it carries with it all kinds of bacterias and things that affect all different kinds of plants and animals that we don't even think about. And what a devastating effect that can have. But as...
Well, and not even that,
sure.
but there are vernal pools and like, you know, sacred mating grounds and sacred habitat where they spawn. And they're saying they're going to stay within 50 feet of it, but if the erosion and a storm comes down, it's going to sweep right into them and destroy them.
I saw a turtle across the road right in front of your house one day. I don't know where it was headed, but it was definitely very slight. It was about this big.
Nice.
Yeah, it was going across the street one
We
day.
have them in our pond.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Well, it's been heartening to see this grassroots effort. You know, it's really pulled people together in support of something that I think we can all appreciate. And I want to just ask if anyone had any questions for Lisa while she's here. Sure.
Please.
I'm not in favor of this, but I want to know, they say that, you know, the panels would be up there for 20 years, and then what would happen after the 20 years? Who's responsible for
Decommissioning. Okay, so that's a very good question. So the pilot agreement that the town council approved has no decommissioning plan in it. And in response to a question from the siting council in Hartford to the applicant, which is Candlewood Solar, you'll hear Amoresco, and the name of the solar utility plant is Candlewood Solar. They say that 180 days before the end of the program, they will put forth a decommissioning bond. 180 days. Now, we know what happened with Century Grass. And the town is extremely vulnerable because Candlewood Solar is a wholly owned subsidiary, and there's really no money. You know, I think Amoresco must have about 150 LLCs. There's, you know, they can just walk away.
Mhm.
Nobody's gonna pay millions of dollars to decommission a plant 180 days before the end of it and just give back the money. I don't see that happening.
Okay.
Any other questions? Well, if you have any further questions, you can certainly go to the Rescue Candlewood Mountain website or the
My
Facebook
phone number
page.
is on there, and you can leave a note on there, and we will answer you.
And she's very responsive. She answers all my emails. So, thank you very much for
Thank
speaking
you.
with us.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.